Victory Monday.
Victory Monday, game balls and kicks to the balls Monday. I was going to give a game ball to anybody who made it through the longest day in NFL history where you could watch football for 15 hours and 27 minutes from the kickoff in London to the final gun in Pittsburgh from 8:30 Central until just before midnight. And I know, Aaron, you were there for all of it.
Almost made it. Got to admit, definitely fell asleep on the sofa last night. Girlfriend and I both zonked out. Woke up about midway through the third quarter, and I said, "Honey, let's go to bed." So I got close. I was
you got close, but you'd never sleep during a Packers game, and that one was a tense, quite the ride. KB was less nervous than I was at the end because I've seen Stafford pull some rabbits out of the hat before, and I thought he was heading that way again.
He most certainly was. And look, I mean, he's done it all. He's seen it all. And the Packers were seemingly pretty content to keep it all in front of them, let them march down the field, hopefully using up time as they went. But, man, I don't know. I guess I've been burned too many times throughout my life where I probably with you on that one. I was definitely nail biting at that point.
See, I mean, KB's right. They were you never really felt like the Rams were in control in any way.
No, I didn't feel like the Packers were in control either.
So the Packers were playing from in front.
More of an issue there. Right.
On the rewatch today, I thought to myself, had they scored even a field goal on that long time-sucking drive in the fourth quarter, 8 minutes, the conversation's totally different. They score a touchdown there, and it's over, and it's like, okay. And then it's like a blowout, and it feels like you blew
and then you just controlled the game. But the problem is this is a theme for this team now through 5 weeks where you should be controlling that game. That's a team you should beat, and they did. But when you had the chance to slowly suffocate your opponent and take control of the game, once again, self-inflicted wounds pop up and put it in question, at least, if not control.
Like the sack on that last drive that made him punt and give it back to him.
The sack, the idea where I get that it's an option for the quarterback at the line of scrimmage, but you're running the football, you're bleeding the clock, and then they get to the run pass option where Love tries to hit that backside slant. The ball gets batted down. Now the clock is stopped. All of a sudden you're behind the sticks. That ends up in a punt rather than, again, taking control of the game and just bleeding the life out of a game that you should be controlling.
There were the previous quarterback now in New York authored a lot of those drives, the 3 and outs that take 15 seconds off the clock.
15 seconds, right. Well, and that's the point. At least that drive did some of the damage it was supposed to as far as bleeding the clock. They were running Jacobs. They did a couple of really nice things with the run game, but ultimately, it bogged down.
I got a couple observations on my note card, and Billy Schmidt and I talked about them on Packers OT that sound crazy, but offensive penalties when you're trying to drain the clock aren't the worst thing because you run a play and then you get a penalty and you get another play, and it's like they're bad.
You got more time, you have more space to traverse, but you do take time off the clock, which is fine.
That's the trade-off because you don't care about the yards, really. You care more about the clock.
And there was something happening yesterday that I hadn't seen on such a regular basis, and that was, no, we're going to keep the timeout. We're not going to run the 10 seconds off the clock.
Right.
I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah, inside 2 minutes.
But I didn't know turning it down was an option. Say, no, we're going to run 10 seconds off instead of using a timeout. I thought it was mandatory.
I think maybe it used to be, but I know that's been the case for the last, I want to say decade or so. We're just old. We're just old, buddy.
No, it's not that. I mean, that's
all right. So, Nags, here are 2 things that sound crazy, but they make sense when you think about it. I will credit the first one, and I'll give a game ball to Billy Schmidt for his theory. In the moment, he said it while we were watching the game, and he said it on Packers OT, that the pick six that Jordan Love threw, which has been dissected by Kurt Benkert, we can argue the merits of the play and the poor execution on the offensive line. Okay, that pick six turned out to be better than a safety.
Wow.
Sounds antithetical. But because had the Rams gotten a safety and the Packers give them the ball back,
who knows how
to score because they could have doubled up. They could have tripled up.
Yep.
Because you're giving them a chance to score 16 points without you getting the ball.
Yep.
Right.
And as it was, Love responded exactly how you hoped
got the field goal. So that pick six turns out to be 3 points instead of 2 because you negate it with Braden
Man,
Iverson. Shout
I
out to
love
Braden
me
Iverson.
some Bill, and I'll talk to him tomorrow. But holy cow, that is really trying to put
It's galaxy brain stuff, but it
it's
makes
real
sense.
galaxy brain stuff. No,
Because
I get
if
it. Of
you-
course,
the safety,
yes,
you're
I
punting to them, and then you
understand.
give Stafford time to put
Mhm.
points up,
But
and then
you-
they get the ball coming out of the third
But
quarter.
you're dismissing a incredibly boneheaded
Yes,
decision on
totally
Love Smart.
agree.
You know, it's
Totally
like I
agree,
get it.
but-
I understand what he's saying there. But man,
right.
that you can't
So-
look at that in any other light. Then that is one of the dumbest plays you will see on an NFL
That's true.
football field.
That is, and it's the first pick six of his career, and
And-
hopefully the last,
Yeah,
or
right.
the
You know what?
ugliest.
Right.
Though, I mean, that was definitely a rookie type mistake, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Will Levis isn't a rookie, and he does that all the time.
right. But the difference being is that it didn't phase him.
Yeah,
That's
You know,
Well,
and I looked at, I
Where
watched
I'm
it. I
at,
go,
yes.
yeah, that's the first rookie thing I've seen him do in a long time.
right?
yes.
Well, here's what
All right.
I was talking to Andy Herman about this. What it reminded me of, and it's a weird kind of juxtaposition here, but remember when Favre would have to he would always start games on
oh,
just
Yep.
sailing balls over guys' heads way outside, and then he would take a hit, right? He would take some kind of hit,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden he was dialed in. It looked to me like Love understood how horrible that decision was, and it dialed him in. Because after that play, he goes 5 of 5, the
Yeah.
next 100+
He got-
yards, 2 touchdowns.
he went on a heater. Yep.
He dialed in. So
Okay.
obviously you don't want that to be the catalyst for the dialing in, but man, the guy's got it. He gets there eventually, almost every single game. They just got to figure out ways to get him there at kickoff.
Talking with Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV. Here, a Monday guest on the Drew and KB program. All right, Nags, if Billy's was worthy of 420 Galaxy brain stuff, the pick six actually better than the safety in that situation
All
for
right,
these
all
reasons and the way it
Sure.
worked out.
Sure.
Here's one for you, and you might want me drug tested after this one. I think there's a chance that the Packers missed Devontae Wyatt as much, if not more, than Jair Alexander yesterday.
I don't think you're incorrect, especially when you consider that that's an offensive line that was down a number of starters, and you are, again, without Jair, and you've got, they did at a different configuration than they did against the Vikings last week. But,
Yes.
again, you're having guys kind of left out to dry in coverage because not much is happening in terms of getting the quarterback off the spot. Now, I do think the Rams had an excellent game plan. McVay is very smart, very good coach. Obviously, Stafford did not hold the ball for most of that game over 2 or 3 seconds at the most. He had a plan to get it out of his hand as quick as possible to, little dart routes, little in cuts, little things. They kept taking little chunks. I know there's been a lot of hand wringing about the pass rush for good reason. Absolutely. There's certainly plenty of third downs you can point to where guys are not winning one-on-one battles. But yesterday, they being the Rams, did a great job of neutralizing the pass rush just with their game plan. There's one play in particular where Gary essentially bull rushes the tackle into Stafford's lap, but Stafford has a very quick release and gets it to the tight end for a 5-yard gain. So it's hard for me to say, okay, the pass rush was non-existent when they weren't really given tons of opportunities. But to that end, if there's a way you can mitigate some of that, it's by having quick interior pressure, which is what you've seen a lot from Devontae Wyatt this season. His absence was certainly notable.
All right, Nags, here's another one for you. And this is a perception thing. And KB was talking about, he gave a game ball to Goody and LaFleur for turning the page and getting rid of the former quarterback who's with the Jets out from under that contract. We're on to Jordan Love era.
Mm-hmm.
Perception is everything. Jordan Love throws an incredible season highlight pass to the 1-yard line to Jaden Reed. And everybody's like, that was a dumb decision. He shouldn't have thrown that. When Aaron Rodgers, his whole career, was like Hail Marys aren't lucky. Right. He was a specialist in that. And Rodgers throws that pass like, oh my God, he's the master.
Well,
and Love is like, that's a harebrained decision. He shouldn't have thrown it.
Well, the situations are very right.
Yes.
Like in a Hail Mary situation, you are desperate. At the start of a game when the entire contest is sitting out there in front of you, I understand people kind of wringing their hands. I will say, however, I ain't ever apologizing for an awesome play. I mean, that is phenomenal. As far as the throw itself goes,
throw and catch, yes.
The decision to throw into what essentially was about 3 Rams defenders.
Okay,
I
but
don't love it.
I quibble with that.
I love the play.
I quibble with that because the third guy was a linebacker who was 2 steps.
He was, hey,
behind
but
him.
he's still there. He could still affect the play. Even
Had
if
it been
like diving
had it been
and knocking it
popped
away
into
at the
the
last
air, had it been a tip drill situation, that guy could have had an impact. But he was
Exactly.
beat. He was
beat. Oh, no doubt. He was beat. And the safety who got back late, he completely misplays it.
The
All of
safety
that
over the
said,
top
though,
didn't help.
It is so fascinating to me how that's a bit of a Rorschach test today, watching Twitter and people kind of dissecting what it is they don't or do like about that play. Like myself, I think on our watch party, Tyler clipped it for one of our socials. Like you literally hear me go, and Jordan Love throwing deep into triple coverage. Oh my God, he caught it. Like it's, I understand like the impetus of being upset because of the decision, but I will take that play every single Sunday.
All great quarterbacks have those throws. No. Yes.
Exactly.
It's one of those.
No
all right.
question.
Also on my notebook, the Narv dog came through and was perfect, and he was better than Danny Whalen. And we're wondering, did Whalen get hurt jumping for that high snap, or like what happened?
The worst, I have no idea, but the worst part was right when they desperately needed him to have a classic 70-yard bomb, he hit his worst punt of the season. I have
37
no idea.
yards.
I don't know if he's around there. I mean, I don't know what happened. I mean, that's a climate-controlled environment. It's not like he's dealing with the elements. But, man, that was rough to watch because he has been phenomenal up until this point. But, man, when they really needed it yesterday, he absolutely came up short. No question about it.
But the Narv dog came through.
He did. And look, he's a little bit like Fight Club at this point for me. Like, we don't talk about Fight Club. You know, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Because, you know, he made his kicks. He was a non-story. He was such a huge story last week because he missed 2 kicks. And he's been a big story in both of their losses because if he makes his kicks, they probably win both of those games. So he made his kicks. He did his job. We don't talk about Fight Club. That's
okay. We can talk about Romeo Doubs, but it appears the meeting went okay and he's going to practice Wednesday, and kumbaya.
I'm very excited.
Jair 2.0, right? 2 times in 9 or 10 games, the Packers have had to suspend an important guy.
Man. This is fascinating. I just talked about this on Cheesehead TV. Where I'm sitting, and I heard Matt yesterday after the game talk about we're going to have a conversation, and hopefully, yes, we're going to be back right in the groove, right? I think it's very different than Jair. I understand, like, the Jair suspension last season certainly seems to have affected Jair in a positive manner. Certainly seems to have kind of come out the other side in a really good place. I'm not so much worried about Romeo here. I'm not worried, but like I'm fascinated to see how the locker room reacts to, okay, from Bill Huber's reporting, just didn't show up to practice Thursday and Friday. And now we're just going to say, okay, you're back. Like these guys were out there blocking their butts off. These guys were out there playing their hearts out. Romeo is back home chilling because he just didn't like the game plan. Like, I don't know, man. This is it to me. This is a really different case than what we saw transpire with Jair.
It will be a test of the unity of that room. And you're right, the locker room. I think they'll come out the other side because they seem to be pretty.
I do too. I do think this is one case where the way Brian's constructed the roster and the way they did rip the Band-Aid off from all those veterans a couple years ago maybe plays into this a little bit because, and I think I heard Kuhn and Billy and the guys talking about this morning. I do think there's something to be said for what veteran in that wide receiver room, such as they are, is pulling him aside and saying, okay, what's going on here? Like Watson can't do it. He's in the same class. Everyone else is younger than him or came into the fold after him. Like there's no veteran presence. There's no Jordy Nelson, James Jones, Devontae Adams to sit there and go, no, kid, this isn't how you handle it. That's not how you are. That's not how you be a pro. That to me is kind of a fascinating aspect of this because we've talked a lot about, they're so young and full of promise and there's all this athletic upside and this possible development. Yeah, but there's nobody in that wide receiver room to tell Romeo, what the hell are you doing, man?
It's on Jason Vrabel.
Right? I mean, essentially, right? But look, Kuhn said it perfectly this morning. The best teams are player-led teams. So someone's got to sit there in the wide receiver room outside of the coach and say, no, this is not how you become a professional. That's not how you behave as a professional. So to me, that's, again, I'm fascinated to see how that plays out within the dynamics of the locker room and that group in particular.
Isn't it a bit early in the season to get a bug up your butt?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
I would, the guy's been an integral part of the offense up until this point. I got to imagine he was there on Wednesday,
Okay.
then didn't show when they typically install a game plan, and then didn't show up on Thursday and Friday. I don't know what other things you're supposed to surmise here sitting outside.
That's okay. We don't
other
know,
than he didn't like the game plan.
Yeah. It could have been more. We don't know. There was a lot of rampant speculation Saturday, which was not great. It's never great when you don't have information. LaFleur is going to step to the podium, and we'll see what he says, and probably just going to say, "Oh, we're fine. It's all addressed. Water under the bridge, whatever."
Let's keep it in perspective. And I'm not saying that it's right or his behavior was right or wrong. But what I am saying is he's 24, not real mature. Most people at the age of 24 make dumb decisions.
Yep.
Take dumb advice.
True. That is very true.
He's 24, so not right. And you have to be better, but.
Okay, so with him gone and Kraft and Reed were enough yesterday, but they need more, and they'll need him back, and he's got the best hands of anybody, I think. Right. But Dontavian Wicks in the crosshairs for many fans because of the drops, the false start. And Nags, I've been telling people to pump the brakes on that because going back to James Jones, Devontae Adams, guys in their second year have struggled.
I've been saying this all day. I mean, the collective amnesia from Packers fans is always interesting because, yes, it is supremely frustrating to watch a guy who is clearly incredibly talented struggle. I mean, he's fighting the ball almost every single time. I mean, even his catches are sometimes double catches. You know what I mean? Like he's fighting against it. He's so I think he's so desperate to make a play that it's costing him plays, And the history of the Packers in this kind of last decade plus, Jordy Nelson dropped all sorts of things early on in his career. James Jones was my Packers fans were ready to riot, and I don't even need to bring up Devontae Adams his second season when literally you have video of TJ Lang after a play going, "Why are you throwing him the ball?" Because he's dropped a sure touchdown pass down in Arizona. This is part of the gig, development. It's never linear. Guys go through ups and downs, but the talent is undeniable. And I think the Packers will continue to play him, continue to try and work him into the offense because he needs to play to become consistent.
I know all drops are costly, and they've had a couple early this season. But I think Jaden Reed had a drop that was almost as bad.
Third down would have been a conversion on third down.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Nope. But he also does come down with some huge plays as well. That's the thing. If Wicks comes down with that 3rd and 10,
it's
up the right sideline there
game.
to basically seal the game.
Yep.
The whole narrative around him is very different today.
Yep.
No question.
So one catch, one play makes a big difference.
That's it.
Okay, Nags, my last note to ask you about, and I shouldn't have waited till our last minute when I hear Hall & Oates, but I'm putting a quarter in Aaron Nagler. I want to hear about Rashawn Gary. Give me your 30-second elevator speech about him.
It's never as bad and it's never as good. That's the old adage, right? As far as what it feels like in the game. But man, he's got plenty of one-on-one opportunities that he's just doing nothing with.
He's getting mauled.
That's the frustrating part. Now, I do think he was a little better than I felt watching it live, going back and watching it. He certainly had better reps than I kind of felt watching it live, getting frustrated. Where's the pass rush, etc. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the scheme, the fact that he's got his hand in the dirt more than he used to, but they have got to unlock him because there's no way a guy that talented should be so pedestrian 5 games into the season.
He's getting owned a lot of times. You're right. It's not, and he has reps that aren't competitive. That's the thing.
That's concerning. That is very concerning. No question.
Okay. Good run today, Nags. Spectacular as always.
Keep
carrying
brother.
The G, my brother. Arizona's coming in. This could be a fun week because they're coming in with a head of steam and confidence. And
I mean, they should be confident. That's a big game they just won out there in San Francisco. I'll tell you what, they're coming to Lambeau unafraid. It's not like they come out of beating San Francisco in their place and going, oh, but now the Packers at Lambeau. They're coming in really confident.
Jeff Hafley has to go back to whatever they were doing against Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson because this is the guy that can take off.
You can take your lights out.
Kyler Murray.
No question
Kyler Murray.
about it.
He takes the corner and puts a hand up.
Crazy, man. It's
crazy
video game
good
stuff. Yep. Going to be a fascinating chess match between those two, no doubt.
All right. Carry the G, my brother.
Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you next week.
All right. Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV.